The millionaire abandoned his pregnant wife, but years later she reappears as the lawyer who is trying to take over his company. The shrill sound of the cell phone alarm cut through the silence of the luxurious room. Nathan Hawthorne opened his eyes, feeling the familiar weight of a hangover. He groped blindly for the bedside table, trying to silence the device. When he finally succeeded, his eyes focused on the display. 0730. Board meeting at 9. Shit, he muttered, wiping his hand across his face. The celebration the night before, yet another multi-million-dollar deal, had been too intense. Now he was paying the price. Nathan forced himself to stand up, ignoring the throbbing headache. The penthouse apartment in downtown Chicago offered a spectacular view of the city, but he hardly noticed as he dragged himself to the bathroom. 15 minutes later, the cold water from the shower had done its job, and he was beginning to feel human again. Wrapped in a soft bathrobe, Nathan prepared a strong coffee while checking the financial news on his tablet.
Hawthorne Enterprises, his technology company, was continuing its meteoric rise. The shares had risen another 3% since the previous day's close. An arrogant smile curtained his... Nathan Hawthorne was Wall Street's darling.
The tech genius who had turned a garage startup into a billion-dollar empire in less than a decade. His face often graced the covers of business magazines, always accompanied by...
But there was a dark side behind the glitter of success, a secret that Nathan strove to keep buried. As he dressed, putting on an impeccably cut Armani suit, his eyes landed on a small velvet box hidden at the bottom of a drawer. For a moment, he hesitated. Then, with a sudden movement, he closed the drawer. The drive to Hawthorne Enterprises headquarters was quick, the driver skillfully navigating the morning traffic. Nathan used the time to review the figures one last time before the meeting. When the car stopped in front of the imposing glass and steel skyscraper, he was already completely focused. "Good morning, Mr. Hawthorne," greeted the receptionist with a rehearsed smile. Nathan replied with a distracted nod and headed straight for the executive elevator. On the 50th floor, his assistant, Melissa, was waiting for him with an anxious expression. "Nathan, I'm glad you're here," she said, escorting him to his office. "We have a problem." He frowned, taking a seat behind his mahogany desk. "What kind of problem?" Melissa hesitated. "The Securities and Exchange Commission. They're investigating some of our financial practices." Nathan felt the blood run cold in his veins, but kept his expression neutral. "Based on what?" "We don't know for sure, but they have requested access to several internal documents." For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm him. Nathan knew very well that not all of his decisions in recent years had been strictly ethical. The explosive growth of the company had required some shortcuts. But he quickly pulled himself together. After all, it wasn't the first time he'd faced challenges. "Tell the legal department. I want a meeting with them as soon as the board meeting is over." Melissa nodded and left, leaving Nathan alone with his thoughts. He stood up and walked over to the panoramic window. Below, Chicago stretched out, vast and imposing. It was a reminder of how much he had achieved, and how much he had to lose. The intercom rang, Melissa's voice sounding through it. "The board meeting is about to start, sir." Nathan straightened his tie, putting on his best mask of confidence. Time to get down to business. The meeting room was packed when he entered. The board members, mostly older men in expensive suits, looked at him with a mixture of admiration and envy. Nathan greeted everyone with his characteristic charismatic smile. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice firm and authoritative, "first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. As you know, last quarter was an exceptional one for Hawthorne Enterprises." He continued, presenting impressive growth and profit figures. The mood in the room was enthusiastic, with several directors nodding in approval. That's when the door opened. "Sorry I'm late," said a female voice, clear and confident. Nathan turned around, the words dying in his throat. There, standing in the doorway, was a woman he had never expected to see again. Brown hair framed a face that, although more mature, was still painfully familiar. The green eyes, which had once gazed at him with love, now stared at him with a mixture of determination and coldness. "Gentlemen," said the chairman of the board, "I would like to introduce the new minority shareholder representative, lawyer Sophia Carter." Nathan's world seemed to go into slow motion. Sophia, the woman he had abandoned 8 years ago, pregnant and desperate. The woman whose heart he had broken in his relentless pursuit of success. Now she was standing there, more beautiful and powerful than ever, looking straight at him. "It's a pleasure to meet you," said Sophia, her voice calm and professional. But when her eyes met Nathan's, there was an unmistakable spark of challenge. "I look forward to working with all of you to ensure the best for our company." Nathan felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. In an instant, the entire empire he had built seemed as fragile as a house of cards, because there, in that room, was the only person who knew his darkest secrets, the only one who could destroy him completely. And from the look in Sophia's eyes, she was more than willing to do so. The rest of the meeting passed like a blur for Nathan. He answered questions automatically, his mind spinning in a whirlwind of memories and dark possibilities. Every time he looked at Sophia, he felt a toxic mixture of guilt, fear, and, surprisingly, attraction. When the meeting finally ended, Nathan found himself alone with Sophia in the living room. The silence between them was thick, laden with years of unresolved hurt. "Why are you here?" he finally asked, his voice hoarse. Sophia stared at him, her green eyes shining with steely determination. "You should know, Nathan. I've come for what is rightfully mine." With those words, she turned and left the room, leaving Nathan with the terrible certainty that his life was about to fall apart. The man who had sacrificed everything for success now faced his greatest challenge, and it came in the form of the woman he had once loved and betrayed. The war had only just begun. Nathan Hawthorne's office, normally a sanctuary of power and control, seemed stifling that afternoon. He loosened his tie, feeling strangely vulnerable as he mentally went over the morning's events. Sophia Carter. The name echoed in his mind, bringing up memories he had spent years trying to suppress. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Mr. Hawthorne?" called Melissa, his assistant. "The legal team is ready for the meeting." Nathan took a deep breath, pulling himself together. "Send them in." 3 lawyers entered, led by Maxwell Reed, the head of Hawthorne Enterprises' legal department. Maxwell's serious countenance was not a good sign. "Nathan," he began, taking a seat, "the situation is more complicated than we imagined." "How much?" asked Nathan, his voice tense. Maxwell hesitated. "The CVM investigation. It seems that someone has provided detailed information about some of our financial practices that, let's say, are in a gray area of legality." Nathan's blood ran cold. "Who?" "We don't know for sure, but—" Maxwell paused, choosing his words carefully. "Ms. Carter's arrival as a representative of the minority shareholders and the start of this investigation seem too coincidental." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his past choices. "What can we do?" "At the moment, we're working on limiting access to the requested documents," replied one of the other lawyers. "But if they have concrete evidence—" "They don't," Nathan interrupted, his voice firmer than he felt. "They can't have—" Maxwell leaned forward. "Nathan, we need to know. Is there something in your past, something involving Sophia Carter, that could harm us?" The question hung in the air, heavy and threatening. Nathan felt everyone's gaze on him, waiting for an answer he wasn't ready to give. "No," he lied, keeping his face impassive. "Sophia is just an ex-girlfriend from college. Nothing more." Maxwell didn't look entirely convinced, but he nodded. "Right. Let's proceed with caution. I suggest you keep your distance from Mrs. Carter for the time being. Any communication must go through us first." The meeting continued, with strategies being discussed and contingency plans drawn up. But Nathan's mind was far away, lost in memories of a simpler time, when love seemed more important than ambition. Hours later, exhausted and with a throbbing head, Nathan decided to go home. The sun was already setting when he left the building, casting long shadows over the streets of Chicago. "Home, sir," asked his driver, James, opening the door of the limousine. Nathan hesitated. No, take me to Millennium Park. Minutes later, he was walking along the park's paths, the cool evening air offering a welcome relief. Families strolled by, couples held hands, life taking its normal course. Nathan felt like a ghost among them, carrying the weight of secrets that threatened to destroy everything he had built. His steps took him to the Cloud Gate, the famous bean-shaped sculpture that reflected the city around it. Nathan stopped, looking at his own distorted image on the metallic surface. Who was that man looking back at him? I thought I'd find you here, said a familiar voice behind him. Nathan turned around, surprised. Sophia was standing there, a few steps away, the gentle wind playing with her hair. She was wearing jeans and a simple blouse, so different from the impeccable lawyer from the morning meeting. For a moment, she looked exactly as she had 8 years ago. How? Began Nathan. You always came here when you were stressed, Sophia replied, shrugging. Some things don't change, apparently. The silence that followed was fraught with tension and unspoken words. Nathan fought the urge to reach out, to touch her, to beg for forgiveness. Why are you doing this, Sophia? He finally asked, his voice low and husky. She stared at him, her green eyes shining with a mixture of anger and sadness. Do you really need to ask, Nathan, after everything? I know I've made mistakes, he admitted, but destroying the company won't fix the past. Sophia laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. Destroying the company. Is that what you think I'm doing? Isn't it? Nathan retorted, feeling his frustration grow. The investigation, your position on the board, it all seems very convenient. Maybe I just want justice, she replied, her voice firm. For me, for our fee. She stopped abruptly, as if she had said too much. Nathan felt his heart squeeze. Son. The unspoken word hung between them, heavy and accusing. Sophia, he began, taking a step towards her, but she stepped back, raising a hand to stop him. No, Nathan, it's too late for explanations or excuses. It's never too late, he insisted, surprising himself with the intensity of his own voice. We can talk, try to understand. Understand? Interrupted Sophia, her eyes blazing. What is there to understand? You made your choice 8 years ago. You chose power and money over us. Over me. The words hit Nathan like a punch in the gut. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, but he knew she was right. In his relentless pursuit of success, he had sacrificed what really mattered. I've changed, he said, almost in a whisper. Sophia watched him for a long moment, her eyes roaming over his face as if searching for something of the man she had once loved. We'll see, he finally replied. She turned to leave, but stopped, looking over her shoulder. One last thing, Nathan. Remember, not everything is what it seems. You've built your empire on secrets and lies. Are you prepared for when they come to light? With these enigmatic words, Sophia walked away, leaving Nathan alone with his thoughts and the distorted reflection of the city around him. As he watched her go, Nathan felt something he hadn't experienced for years. Genuine fear. Not just for the future of his company, but for what he might have lost forever. The drive home was a blur. Nathan barely registered the city passing by the limousine window, his mind replaying the conversation with Sophia over and over again. When he finally arrived at his apartment, he felt exhausted, as if he had aged years in a single day. He poured himself a whiskey and walked out onto the balcony. The night view of Chicago, which normally filled him with pride, now seemed cold and distant. Every light in the city represented a life, a story. How many of these stories had he ignored, trampled on, in his quest for the top? Nathan picked up his cell phone, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. There was a call he needed to make, one he had been putting off for a long time. With a deep sigh, he dialed the number. Hello, answered a male voice on the other end. Frank, it's Nathan Hawthorne. There was a tense pause. Nathan, it's been years. I know, Nathan replied, feeling the weight of guilt. Listen, Frank, I need your help. It's about Sophia and about my son. The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. Finally, Frank spoke, his voice laden with restrained emotion. It's about time, son. It's about time. As the night wore on, Nathan Hawthorne, the titan of business, the man who seemed to have it all, faced the painful truth that perhaps he had lost what really mattered. And now, with the shadows of the past threatening to engulf him, he wondered if there was still time to right the wrongs of a lifetime. The battle for Nathan Hawthorne's soul had only just begun. The sun had barely risen when Nathan Hawthorne arrived at the office the next morning. His eyes were marked by deep, dark circles, silent witnesses to a sleepless night. The conversation with Frank still echoed in his mind, full of revelations that had shaken the foundations of his carefully constructed world. He had barely sat down when Melissa entered, her expression worried. "Nathan, we have a problem. The press. They know about the CVM investigation." Nathan closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the pressure build. "How?" "We don't know for sure, but there are rumors going around. The PR department is being bombarded with questions." "Damn it," muttered Nathan. "Schedule a press conference for this afternoon. We need to control the narrative." Melissa nodded and left quickly, leaving Nathan alone with his thoughts. He stood up and walked over to the window. Below, the city of Chicago was waking up, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the corporate heights. A soft tap on the door brought him out of his reverie. "Come in," he said, turning around. To his surprise, it wasn't Melissa, but Maxwell Reed, the head of the legal department, and he wasn't alone. Standing next to him with a rigid posture and determined eyes was Sophia. "Nathan," Maxwell began, his voice tense, "I think we need to talk." Nathan felt his stomach sink. "What's going on?" Sophia stepped forward, her green eyes fixed on his. "The truth, Nathan. It's time for the truth." The next few minutes passed like a blur as Sophia and Maxwell explained the situation. The CVM investigation wasn't just about recent dubious financial practices. It was about something much deeper, something that went back to the early days of Hawthorne Enterprises. "Do you remember Jeremy Collins?" asked Sophia, her voice calm but charged with emotion. Nathan felt his blood run cold in his veins. Jeremy Collins. The name brought up memories he had tried hard to bury. "He was my partner in the beginning," Nathan replied, his voice hoarse. Before all this." Sophia nodded. "Jeremy was more than your partner, Nathan. He was my brother." The revelation struck Nathan like a thunderbolt. Memories flooded his mind. Endless nights working on codes, shared dreams of changing the world through technology, and then the betrayal. "I didn't know," Nathan whispered, feeling the weight of years of guilt. "Sophia, I swear, I didn't know he was your brother." "But you knew what you did to him," Sophia retorted, her voice trembling slightly. "You drove him out of the company, stole his ideas, and built this empire on lies." Nathan staggered, leaning on his desk. The truth, exposed so bluntly, was almost unbearable. I was desperate. I thought it was the only way to succeed," Sophia added, bitterness in her voice. "At the cost of lives, Nathan, at the cost of dreams." Maxwell, who had been watching in silence until then, snorted, "Nathan, the situation is serious. If this comes to light—" "When it comes to light," Sophia corrected. "The company won't survive," Maxwell concluded. "We need a plan." Nathan looked from Maxwell to Sophia, feeling the weight of his past choices. It was then that an idea began to form in his mind. A crazy, risky idea, but one that could be his only chance of redemption. What if we told you everything?" Nathan suggested, his voice low but firm. Maxwell's eyes widened. "Have you gone mad? That would destroy everything." But Sophia looked at him with an expression that mixed surprise and something Nathan couldn't decipher. Hope, perhaps? "No," Nathan said, feeling a conviction growing inside him. "I wouldn't destroy everything. It would destroy what we've built on lies, but we could rebuild." The right way this time. He turned to Sophia. You said you wanted justice. That's what I'm offering. The truth, all of it, for the world to see. The silence that followed was deafening. Maxwell looked like he was about to have a heart attack, but Sophia's eyes never left Nathan's. Why? She finally asked. Why now? Nathan took a deep breath. Because I met my son last night. The revelation hung in the air, changing the atmosphere in the room. Sophia paled, her eyes widening in shock. Frank told me everything, Nathan continued, his voice breaking. How you found out you were pregnant after I left. How you tried to find me, but I was already out of reach. How Jeremy helped you raise our son, even after everything I did to him. Tears began to form in Sophia's eyes. You knew him? Nathan nodded, feeling his own tears threaten to fall. He has your eyes, you know, and my crooked smile. He laughed softly, a sound mixed with a sob. He's amazing, Sophia. And I missed all that. All those years. Sophia took a step forward, the anger in her eyes slowly being replaced by something softer. Nathan, I know I can't change the past, he continued, his voice gaining strength, but I can change the future. I can do the right thing, finally, for Jeremy, for you, for our son, for everyone who has been affected by my selfish choices. Maxwell, finally seeming to regain his voice, intervened. This is crazy. You can't just... We can, Nathan interrupted, his voice firm. We will. He turned to Sophia, holding out his hand. What do you say? We do this together. Fix what I broke. Sophia looked at the outstretched hand, years of hurt and hope fighting in her eyes. For a tense moment, Nathan thought she would refuse, but then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. Together, she said, a small smile forming on her lips. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Lawyers were summoned, documents were prepared, and a public relations team worked frantically to organize a last-minute press conference. When Nathan finally stepped up to the podium, cameras flashing and reporters eagerly waiting, he felt surprisingly calm. Sophia was by his side, her presence a source of strength he hadn't known he needed. Good afternoon, Nathan began, his voice clear and firm. Today, I'm here to tell you a story of ambition, mistakes, and, I hope, redemption. As he spoke, exposing every dark detail of his past, Nathan felt a weight being lifted from his shoulders. He saw the wide eyes of the reporters, heard the shocked whispers from the audience, but continued. I know many of you are wondering why I'm doing this, he said, coming to the end of his confession. The truth is that I've learned, belatedly, that there are more important things than financial success. There are more important people. He looked at Sophia, who nodded encouragingly. I am prepared to face the consequences of my actions, Nathan concluded. But I'm also committed to fixing what I've broken, to rebuilding this company on a foundation of honesty and integrity, and to reconnecting with those I hurt along the way. When he finished, the silence in the room was palpable. Then, slowly, someone began to applaud. The sound grew, until the whole room was on its feet in a deafening ovation. Nathan looked at Sophia, seeing tears in her eyes that mirrored his own. Thank you, he whispered. She squeezed his hand. It's only the beginning, she replied. As they left the stage together, Nathan knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There would be lawsuits, investigations, and a mountain of challenges to overcome. But for the first time in years, he felt truly alive, truly free. The empire he had built might crumble, but in the process, he had regained something much more valuable, his humanity. And with Sophia by his side and the chance to meet his son, Nathan Hawthorne was ready to start a new chapter, a chapter of redemption, of love, and of second chances. The days following Nathan Hawthorne's public confession were a whirlwind of emotions and chaos. Chicago's corporate world, and indeed the entire country, was in turmoil. Hawthorne Enterprises, once a symbol of innovation and success, now found itself at the center of a media and legal hurricane. Nathan watched the city from the window of his office, which no longer seemed as imposing as before. The headlines on the big screens in the square below screamed in bold letters, "Tech Empire Built on Lies. Hawthorne Confesses Fraud. Shares Sink After Shocking Revelation." A soft knock on the door brought him out of his thoughts. It was Sophia, her eyes tired but determined. "The lawyers are here," she said, her voice soft. "Are you ready?" Nathan nodded, straightening his tie. "As ready as I can be." Together they walked to the conference room, where a team of lawyers was waiting for them. The air was heavy with tension and anticipation. "Mr. Hawthorne, Miss Carter," greeted a middle-aged lawyer, her expression grave. "I'm Catherine Winters, from Winters Associates. We've been hired by the council to deal with, well, all of this." Nathan and Sophia sat down, exchanging apprehensive glances. "I'll be blunt," Catherine continued. "The situation is serious, very serious. The SEC is preparing a series of charges, and there are at least 3 class actions being organized by angry shareholders." Nathan felt the weight of his actions like never before. "I see. What are our options?" Catherine sighed. "Frankly, Mr. Hawthorne, your options are limited. Your public confession, while admirable from a certain point of view, has significantly complicated our defense strategy." "I don't regret it," Nathan said firmly, looking at Sophia. "It was the right thing to do." "Maybe," replied Catherine. "But now we have to deal with the consequences. The board is considering removing you from the CEO position, and there's a real possibility of jail time." The silence that followed was deafening. Nathan felt the world spinning around him, but Sophia's hand finding his under the table anchored him. "What about the company?" Sophia asked, her voice firm. "Is there a chance of saving it?" Catherine hesitated. "It's complicated. Hawthorne Enterprises' reputation has suffered a severe blow. The stock has fallen more than 60% since the confession, and many business partners are reconsidering their contracts." Nathan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of years of wrong decisions. When he opened them again, there was a renewed determination in his gaze. "What do we need to do?" he asked. The next few hours were filled with intense discussions, legal strategies, and corporate restructuring plans. Nathan and Sophia worked side by side, their renewed connection evident to everyone in the room. When they finally emerged from the conference room, it was after midnight. The office was silent, the city outside a constellation of distant lights. "Are you all right?" asked Sophia, watching Nathan with concern. He smiled tiredly. "Honestly, I don't know. But for the first time in years, I feel light, like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders." Sophia nodded, understanding. "I know what you mean, but Nathan, you know that this is only the beginning, right? The next few months, maybe years, won't be easy." "I know," he replied, turning to face her. "But it's worth it. For the chance to do things right this time. For the chance to meet our son." The mention of her son made Sophia's eyes fill with tears. "He wants to meet you, you know. He's always wanted to." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. What's his name?" "Alexander," Sophia replied, a soft smile on her lips. "Alexander Jeremy Hawthorne Carter." The name hit Nathan like a wave of emotion. Jeremy. She had honored his brother, the man Nathan had betrayed. "It's a beautiful name," he said, his voice breaking. Sophia hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "He's in town, you know. Alex. He came with me when I came here to confront him." Nathan felt his heart race. "He is. Do you think he'd like to see me?" Sophia's smile widened. "Actually, he's been asking a lot of questions about you since he saw the press conference. I think he's curious." "Curious is good, right?" asked Nathan, suddenly feeling as nervous as a teenager. Sophia laughed softly. "It's good, yes. How about we have lunch together tomorrow, the 3 of us?" The proposal hung in the air between them, full of possibilities and promises of a new beginning. "I'd love to," Nathan replied, feeling a mixture of fear and excitement. As they said goodbye that night, there was a different energy between them. It wasn't the passionate love of years ago, nor the recent bitterness. It was something new, something fragile, but full of potential.
The next morning, Nathan woke up early, his mind spinning with thoughts of the upcoming lunch. He dressed carefully, opting for a casual shirt and jeans, wanting to look more like a father and less like a CE. The restaurant Sophia chose was a small cafe in Lincoln Park, far from the financial center and prying A's. Nathan arrived first, his heart pounding as he waited, and then he saw them, Sophia in a simple summer dress.
And next to her, a boy with dark hair and bright green eyes, Alexander, her son. Time seemed to freeze when their gazes met. Nathan saw in those young eyes a mixture of curiosity, apprehension, and something more. Hope, perhaps. Sophia and Alex approached the table, and Nathan stood up, feeling more nervous than he had ever been at any business meeting. "Hi," he said softly, his voice shaking slightly. Alex looked him up and down before answering. "Hi, Dad." The word, so simple and yet so powerful, made something inside Nathan break. Tears began to form in his eyes, and before he knew it, he was hugging his son for the first time. Alex, after a moment of surprise, returned the embrace, his small arms wrapping around Nathan. Sophia watched the scene, silent tears running down her cheeks. When they finally parted, all three of them were beaming with emotion. "So," said Alex, breaking the silence as they sat down, "Mom said you built robots. Is that true?" Nathan laughed, feeling the tension dissipate. "Well, not exactly robots, more like..." And so, between laughter, stories, and curious questions, a new family began to form. Nathan knew that the road ahead would be difficult. There were courts to face, a company to rebuild, and years of absence to make up for. But as he watched Sophia laughing at Alex's joke and felt the warmth of his son's hand in his, Nathan Hawthorne knew that, for the first time in his life, he was exactly where he should be. The price of the truth had been high, but the reward was priceless. The sound of hammers and chainsaws filled the Saturday morning air in a quiet suburb of Chicago. Nathan Hawthorne, dressed in worn jeans and a simple t-shirt, stood at the top of a ladder, hammering nails into a wooden structure. Below him, Alex, now 9 years old, held the ladder tightly, his face a mixture of concentration and excitement. "Pass the level, champ," Nathan asked, holding out his hand. Alex quickly took the tool from a nearby box and handed it to his father. "Here, it's looking amazing, Dad." Nathan smiled, feeling a wave of warmth in his chest. 3 months had passed since that first lunch in the park, and every moment with Alex was a treasure he treasured. The treehouse they were building was more than just a weekend project. It was a symbol of a new life, of bonds being forged, and of a future Nathan had never imagined for himself. "Snack time, my builders," called a familiar voice. Sophia approached, carrying a tray with sandwiches and lemonade. Nathan climbed down from the ladder, gratefully accepting the glass Sophia offered him. Their fingers touched briefly and they both smiled, a silent understanding passing between them. As they ate, sitting on the grass in the backyard, Nathan couldn't help but reflect on how drastically his life had changed in recent months. Hawthorne Enterprises, as he knew it, no longer existed. After weeks of intense negotiations, audits, and restructuring, a new entity had emerged, Phoenix Tech. The name was Sophia's idea, symbolizing the rebirth of the company from the ashes of its past. Nathan had resigned as CEO, accepting a minor position as a technical consultant. It was quite a fall for someone who had once been the titan of Chicago business. But for him, it was a small price to pay for the chance of redemption. "What are you thinking about?" asked Sophia, noticing his distant gaze. Nathan smiled softly. "How things change. A year ago, I'd be in a boardroom right now, closing some multi-million-dollar deal. And now you're building a treehouse," Alex added, his voice full of pride. "Exactly," agreed Nathan, ruffling his son's hair, "and I wouldn't trade that for anything." The moment was interrupted by the sound of an approaching car. Nathan immediately recognized the black sedan. It was Catherine Winters, his lawyer. "Sorry to interrupt your family day," said Catherine, getting out of the car with a briefcase in her hand. but we have important news." Sophia took Alex by the hand. "Why don't you go and play for a while we talk to Mrs. Winters, dear?" Alex grimaced, but obeyed, running to the back of the yard. The three adults sat on the porch, the atmosphere suddenly tense. "Well?" asked Nathan, his stomach churning with anxiety. Catherine opened her briefcase. "I have good news and bad news. The good news is that we've reached an agreement with the SEC. They're willing to reduce the charges in exchange for your continued cooperation and a substantial fine." Nathan and Sophia exchanged relieved glances. "And the bad news?" asked Sophia. Catherine hesitated. "Jeremy Collins." The name hung in the air, laden with history and emotion. Nathan felt Sophia stiffen beside him. "What about him?" asked Nathan, his voice low. "He's coming back to Chicago," Catherine explained. "And he's asking for a stake in Phoenix Tech, claiming that the original technologies were partly his." The silence that followed was heavy. Nathan closed his eyes, memories of his past betrayal flooding his mind. "He's entitled," he finally said, his voice firm. "In fact, he deserves more than that." Sophia looked at him in surprise. "Nathan." "No, Sophia," he interrupted gently. "It's about time you made things right with Jeremy. Completely." Catherine watched them, an expression of respect on her face. "Shall I arrange a meeting then?" Nathan nodded. "Please, and Catherine, thank you for everything." After the lawyer left, Nathan and Sophia sat in silence, watching Alex play in the yard. "Are you sure about this?" Sophia finally asked. "Facing Jeremy won't be easy." Nathan took her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I am. It's the next step in our journey of rebuilding, not just of the company, but of our lives." Sophia squeezed his hand, a gesture of support and understanding. "We'll be there for you, all of us." That night, after Alex had gone to bed, Nathan found Sophia on the balcony, looking at the stars. "You know," he began, joining her, "a few months ago, I thought I had it all. Money, power, success. But I was so empty inside." Sophia turned to him, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "And now?" Nathan smiled, a real smile full of gratitude. Now I really have everything that matters." He leaned in hesitantly, and Sophia met his lips halfway. The kiss was soft, full of promise and possibility. When they broke apart, Sophia rested her head on Nathan's shoulder. "We still have a long way to go," she murmured. "I know," Nathan replied, hugging her closer. "But we're in this together, and that makes all the difference." As the couple watched the starry night, they both knew that the challenges ahead, meeting Jeremy, rebuilding the company, navigating their reborn relationship, would be difficult. But for the first time in years, both Nathan and Sophia felt truly hopeful. The treehouse in the backyard, still unfinished, was a perfect reminder of where they were, in the middle of a rebuilding journey, imperfect, sometimes unstable, but full of potential and love. And for Nathan Hawthorne, the man who had once traded everything for success, this new life, with its imperfections and challenges, was richer and more rewarding than any corporate empire could ever be. As the evening progressed, Nathan and Sophia remained on the balcony, planning for the future, laughing about shared memories and sometimes simply enjoying the comfortable silence between them. The road ahead would be long and sometimes difficult, but they were ready to face it. Together, the Phoenix Tech office was a marked contrast to the opulence of the old Hawthorne enterprises. Glass walls had been replaced by open, collaborative spaces, and the company logo, a stylized phoenix in shades of orange and red, dominated the reception area. Nathan Hawthorne adjusted his tie, feeling strangely nervous. It wasn't an ordinary feeling for him, but today was no ordinary day. Today he would be facing Jeremy Collins for the first time in almost a decade. "Are you okay?" asked Sophia, placing a comforting hand on his arm. Nathan nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. It's just difficult." "I know," she replied softly. "But remember, we're here to make things right, to make amends for the past." Before Nathan could reply, the receptionist interrupted them. "Mr. Hawthorne, Mrs. Carter, Mr. Collins has arrived. The moment Nathan had feared and longed for had finally arrived. Jeremy Collins entered the conference room, and time seemed to freeze. The years had been kind to Jeremy. His brown hair was flecked with gray at the temples, giving him a distinctive look. His eyes, so similar to Sophia's, carried a mixture of emotions, anger, hurt, and perhaps, deep down, a spark of curiosity. "Jeremy," said Nathan, his voice hoarse. "Thanks for coming." Jeremy stared at him for a long moment before replying, "I didn't come for you, Nathan. I came for the truth, and for my sister." Sophia stepped forward, hugging her brother briefly. "It's good to see you, Jer." The three of them sat down, the tension palpable in the air. Nathan took a deep breath, knowing it was time to face his past head-on. "Jeremy, I don't even know where to start," he said, his voice shaking. "What I did to you, to our partnership, was unforgivable. I was blinded by ambition, by the desire to succeed at any cost. And in the process, I betrayed not just a business partner, but a friend." Jeremy watched him in silence, his face a mask of contained emotions. Nathan continued, "I know that words can't undo what I've done, but I'm here today to try to do things the right way, to recognize your contribution, your genius, in creating what has become Hawthorne Enterprises and now Phoenix Tech." He slid a folder across the table. "Here's a proposal. A significant stake in the company, public recognition of your co-founding, and a formal apology that will be released to all the press." Jeremy picked up the folder, leafing through the documents with a neutral expression. When he finally spoke, his voice was controlled but charged with emotion. "You know, Nathan, for years I've dreamed of this moment. I've imagined 1,000 different ways to get revenge, to make you feel the pain and betrayal I felt." He paused, his eyes meeting Sophia's. "But then my sister told me about your son, my nephew, about how you're trying to make things right, and I realized revenge wouldn't bring back the lost years." Nathan felt a lump in his throat. "Jeremy, I'm not finished," Jeremy interrupted, holding up a hand. "What you did was terrible, Nathan. You destroyed dreams, friendships, trust, but I'm not the same man I was 8 years ago either. And maybe it's time we all look to the future instead of being stuck in the past." Sophia, who had been watching in silence until then, spoke up. "What are you saying, Jer?" Jeremy sighed, a small smile forming on his lips. "I'm saying that I accept the offer, with a few conditions." The next few hours were filled with intense discussions, negotiations, and, surprisingly, a few moments of laughter as the three of them reminisced about the early days of the company. As the sun began to set, tinting the office in golden hues, a new agreement had been reached. Jeremy had not only accepted a stake in Phoenix Tech, but had also agreed to join the development team as Director of Innovation. It was a chance to get back to the work he loved and to help shape the future of the company that was partly his creation. When they finally got up to leave, Nathan held out his hand to Jeremy. For a tense moment, he feared that the gesture would be rejected. But then Jeremy shook it firmly. "That doesn't mean everything is forgotten," said Jeremy. "We have a long way to go." Nathan nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and determination. "I know, and I'm ready to walk it, step by step." As they left the office, Sophia wrapped her arm around Nathan's. "I'm proud of you," she murmured. Nathan smiled, feeling the weight of the last few years dissipate a little more. "Thank you for standing by me, for believing that I could change. Always," Sophia replied, kissing him softly. That evening at home, Nathan found Alex in the living room, drawing intensely. "What are you doing, champ?" he asked, sitting down next to his son. Alex held up his drawing, showing a colorful image of a family: Nathan, Sophia, Alex, and a figure Nathan didn't immediately recognize. "That's Uncle Jeremy," explained Alex excitedly. "Mom said he's coming to visit us next weekend. Can we finish the treehouse with him?" Nathan felt a wave of emotion hit him. "Of course we can, son. In fact, I think it's an incredible idea." As he watched Alex go back to drawing, Nathan reflected on how his life had changed. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time in years, he felt truly at peace. Phoenix Tech was being reborn, not just as a company, but as a symbol of redemption and second chances. And Nathan, the man who had once sacrificed everything for success, now knew that true success lay in the bonds we build, the bridges we repair, and the love we share. Sophia entered the room, smiling at the sight of father and son together. Nathan pulled her close and the three of them embraced, a united family facing the future together. Outside, the sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Phoenix colors, Nathan thought. Colors of rebirth and new beginnings. And for Nathan Hawthorne, every new day was just that, a chance to be better, to love more deeply, and to build a legacy he could truly be proud of. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen of the Hawthorne home on a sunny Sunday morning. Nathan, with his hair slightly tousled and wearing a comfortable robe, watched the scene before him with a smile on his lips. Sophia was at the stove, preparing pancakes while humming softly. Alex, now 10, was sitting at the kitchen table, immersed in a new robotics project that Jeremy had given him. And speaking of Jeremy, he was there too, leaning over Alex's shoulder, patiently explaining some complex concept. The scene was so domestic, so normal, and yet, for Nathan, it was extraordinary. "Coffee, everyone?" he asked, picking up the jug. "Please," replied Jeremy, raising his eyes from the project. "I'm going to need the caffeine if I'm going to keep up with this genius here." Alex smiled proudly. "Uncle Jeremy says I can be a better engineer than both of you put together one day." Nathan laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "I don't doubt it one bit, champ." As they served coffee and pancakes, the conversation flowed naturally. It was hard to believe that only a year ago, the idea of this family reunion would have seemed impossible. "So," said Sophia, wiping some syrup off Alex's chin, "is everyone ready for the big day tomorrow?" Nathan felt a chill in his stomach at the reminder. Tomorrow would be the official launch of Phoenix Tech's new product line, the first since the company's restructuring. "Nervous?" asked Jeremy, noticing Nathan's expression. "A little," he admitted. Different this time. Before, it was all about numbers, profits, dominating the market. Now it's about making a difference," Sophia added, taking his hand across the table. Nathan nodded. Phoenix Tech's new product line wasn't just about cutting-edge technology. It was about accessibility, sustainability, and positive social impact. Each product had been developed with the idea of improving lives, not just generating profits. "You know," said Jeremy thoughtfully, "when we were young and dreaming about our startup, that's what we wanted, to change the world for the better through technology. And now we have that chance," Nathan replied. "Thanks to you." The moment was interrupted by Alex, who let out a shout of excitement. "It worked! Look!" Everyone turned to see the little robot that Alex had assembled take its first faltering steps across the kitchen table. "Incredible, son!" exclaimed Nathan, genuinely impressed. While Alex animatedly explained how he had made the robot work, with Jeremy adding technical details here and there, Nathan found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed. The afternoon passed quickly, with the family enjoying their time together. Nathan and Jeremy worked on the treehouse, now almost complete, while Sophia and Alex prepared a picnic in the garden. In the evening, with Alex already in bed, the three adults gathered on the balcony, each with a glass of wine. "Do you think we're ready for tomorrow?" asked Sophia, breaking the comfortable silence. Jeremy shrugged. "Technically, the products are revolutionary, but the market is unpredictable," Nathan added, "especially after everything that happened with Hawthorne Enterprises." There was a moment of tension at the mention of the past, but it passed quickly. They had learned to deal with these memories, to use them as lessons and not as burdens. "You know," Nathan said, looking up at the stars, "a year ago I would have stayed up all night, obsessing over spreadsheets and market projections. Now, Sophia encouraged. Nathan smiled, taking her hand. "Now, I just want to do the right thing. Create something that makes a difference. And if we fail? We won't fail, interrupted Jeremy, his voice full of confidence. Because this time, we're doing it together, and for the right reasons. They toasted to this, the clink of glasses echoing in the still night. The next morning, the Chicago Convention Center was buzzing. Journalists, investors, and technology enthusiasts crowded around, all eager to see what Phoenix Tech had prepared. Backstage, Nathan was adjusting his tie for the 1,000th time. Sophia approached, smoothing the lapels of his jacket. "You look great," she assured him, "and you'll do even better." Nathan smiled, grateful for her reassuring presence. "Where's Alex?" "With Jeremy in the front row. He didn't want to miss anything." The announcement came over the sound system. It was time. Nathan took a deep breath, exchanging one last look with Sophia and Jeremy before taking the stage. The lights blinded him momentarily, and the silence in the audience was deafening. For a brief moment, the old Nathan threatened to emerge, arrogant, confident, ready to take over the world. But then he saw Alex in the front row, smiling and waving enthusiastically. He saw Sophia and Jeremy, side by side, nodding encouragingly, and he knew exactly what he needed to say. "Good morning, everyone," he began, his voice firm. "Many of you know me. You know my story, my mistakes, my downfall. But today I'm not here to talk about the past. I'm here to talk about the future, a future that we build together, not at the expense of each other." As Nathan spoke about Phoenix Tech's vision, about technology that empowers rather than exploits, that unites rather than divides, he could feel the energy in the audience changing. The initial skepticism gave way to curiosity, then enthusiasm. And when he finally unveiled the new products, from affordable medical devices to clean energy solutions for underprivileged communities, the response was overwhelming. Hours later, with the presentation a resounding success and social media exploding with praise for Phoenix Tech, Nathan finally had a moment to breathe. He found his family backstage, all grinning from ear to ear. "You did great, Dad," exclaimed Alex, hugging him tightly. Sophia kissed him softly. "We're so proud of you." Jeremy held out his hand, which Nathan shook firmly. No words were needed between them. As they left the convention center, Nathan found himself reflecting once again. The road that had led him there had been long and winding, full of mistakes and regrets. But every step, every choice, had brought him to this moment. He was no longer the ruthless titan of business, willing to sacrifice everything for success. Now he was simply Nathan, father, partner, friend. A man determined to use his talents and resources to make a difference in the world. And as he walked in the Chicago sunshine, hand in hand with Sophia, and listening to Alex and Jeremy's laughter in front of him, Nathan Hawthorne knew that he had finally found the true meaning of success. The future was bright, full of possibilities. And for the first time in his life, Nathan was eager to face it, not alone, but with his family by his side. 5 years had passed since the triumphant launch of Phoenix Tech's new product line. Time had brought changes, challenges, and, above all, growth. Nathan Hawthorne, now 45, watched the city of Chicago from the observation deck of the Willis Tower. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, reflected in the windows of the skyscrapers. It was a view he had admired hundreds of times before, but today it seemed different, special. "Thinking of buying the tower, Dad," joked a familiar voice behind him. Nathan turned, smiling at Alex, now a tall, slender 15-year-old, with Sophia's green eyes and Nathan's crooked smile. "Not this time, champ," Nathan replied, slipping his arm around his son's shoulders. "Just thinking." Alex nodded, understanding. "About today's big news?" Nathan sighed. Nathan sighed. Among other things. That morning, Nathan had officially announced his retirement from Phoenix Tech. The news took many by surprise. After all, the company was at the height of its success. But for Nathan, Jeremy, and Sophia, it was the perfect moment. "Do you think you made the right choice?" asked Alex, his voice soft and thoughtful. Nathan looked at his son, seeing in him not only the boy he had raised over the past few years, but also the young man he was becoming. You know, a long time ago, I used to think that success meant having the biggest office in the tallest building, doing the most lucrative deals, being the most talked-about name on Wall Street. He paused, his eyes roaming the city below. But now I know that true success lies in the lives we touch, in the positive changes we make in the world. And Phoenix Tech, well, it's in good hands with your mother and Uncle Jeremy. Alex smiled. And with me, one day, if I want to. Nathan laughed, ruffling his son's hair. If you want to. But remember, you have the whole world ahead of you. You don't have to follow in my footsteps or your mother's. Just be happy. The moment was interrupted by the ringing of Nathan's cell phone. It was a message from Sophia. We're ready. Come home. Surprise party time? Asked Alex, smiling mischievously. Nathan feigned surprise. Party? What party? Laughing together, father and son left the tower, plunging into the bustling Chicago night. The Hawthorne house was bright and full of life when they arrived. Friends, family, and work colleagues filled the space, all there to celebrate not only Nathan's retirement, but the legacy that he, Sophia, and Jeremy had built together. Sophia, radiant in a navy blue dress, came to greet them at the door. Finally, she exclaimed, kissing Nathan softly. I thought I'd have to send a rescue team. Nathan smiled, enveloping her in a hug. I'm sorry, darling. We needed a father and son moment. The evening passed in a mixture of laughter, stories, and, inevitably, a few emotional tears. Jeremy gave a moving speech, recalling the journey from the turbulent early days to the present. Nathan, he concluded, raising his glass, when we met, we were just two young dreamers with big ideas and little more than that. We went through ups and downs, betrayals and reconciliations. But in the end, we built something bigger than ourselves. Phoenix Tech isn't just a company. It's a testimony that it's possible to do business with integrity, innovate with purpose, and, above all, grow as human beings. The applause was deafening, and Nathan felt his eyes fill with tears. He hugged Jeremy tightly, unnecessary words between them. Later, as the party began to wind down, Nathan found a quiet moment in the back garden. The treehouse, now a sturdy and elaborate structure, stood out against the starry sky. $1 for your thoughts, Sophia said, joining him and handing him a glass of champagne. Nathan smiled, pulling her close. I was thinking about how funny life is. 10 years ago, I thought I had everything. And now, Sophia encouraged. Now I know I have everything, he replied, kissing her softly. You, Alex, our family, friends. This is true success, Sophia, the legacy that really matters. They sat in silence for a moment, enjoying the evening and each other's company. So, Sophia finally said, what does the great Nathan Hawthorne plan to do in his retirement? Nathan laughed. Well, I thought I'd start a new startup, maybe something in the high-tech treehouse business. Sophia playfully patted his arm. Silly. Seriously, what are your plans? Nathan reflected for a moment. Honestly, I want to dedicate myself more to the foundation. There are so many communities that still need help, so many brilliant ideas that need support to flourish. The Phoenix Foundation, created 3 years earlier, was Nathan's heart project, focused on promoting technology education in underprivileged communities and supporting startups with a positive social impact. The foundation was Nathan's way of giving back and making a difference in a more direct way. That sounds perfect, said Sophia, her eyes shining with pride. And don't forget, you promised Alex that trip across the country. Nathan smiled as he remembered a father and son road trip, visiting universities and, most importantly, spending time together before Alex left for college. It's going to be amazing, he said, already imagining the adventures they would have. The sound of laughter coming from the house caught his attention. Alex was on the veranda with some friends, all excitedly discussing the latest robotics project they were working on. Look at him, Nathan muttered. Sometimes I still see him as that little boy I met 5 years ago. And other times he looks so grown up that it hurts a bit, Sophia added. Nathan nodded. Exactly. But you know what? I'm so proud of the man he's becoming, and grateful to be a part of it." Sophia leaned her head on Nathan's shoulder. "We both are, and he's lucky to have you as a father." As the evening progressed, friends and family said goodbye. Soon, only the core family remained: Nathan, Sophia, Alex, and Jeremy, who practically lived with them at weekends. Sitting in the living room, with the fireplace glowing warmly, they recalled stories, laughed at shared memories, and dreamed of the future. "You know," said Jeremy in a quiet moment, "when I think about everything we've been through, how we got here, it's almost unbelievable." "But here we are," Sophia replied, smiling. Nathan looked at each of them: Sophia, his rediscovered love and partner in every way; Jeremy, the friend he had almost lost, but who was now closer than a brother; and Alex, the son he had almost never met, but who was now the center of his world. "Here we are," Nathan repeated, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over him. "And there's no place in the world I'd rather be." As the night turned to dawn, Nathan Hawthorne reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The mistakes, the falls, the second chances. Every moment, every decision had shaped not only his destiny, but that of everyone around him. The empire he had once built may have crumbled, but in its place, something much more precious had emerged: a family, a legacy of doing good, and the peace of knowing that, in the end, he had chosen the right path. And so, surrounded by those he loved, Nathan Hawthorne closed one chapter of his life and prepared to begin the next. Not as a business titan, but simply as a man grateful for every day, every challenge, and every opportunity to make a difference. The future was bright, full of possibilities, and Nathan couldn't wait to see what would come next.